Sean Kinsella, Director 8th Fire, and myself wanted to take a moment, just a moment of your time, to speak about Orange Shirt Day, which began on September 30th, 2013, when First Nations residential school survivor Phyllis Webstad spoke publicly for the very first time in 40 years about her experience of entering St. Joseph's residential school in Williams Lake, British Columbia, and being stripped of all her clothes, including her shiny new orange shirt. Marking the time of year when Indigenous children were taken from their families to live in Canada's residential schools, and highlighting Phyllis's story and the dehumanising tyranny of the residential school system, September 30th has become a day of commemoration and education about the history and legacies of the residential school system. More recently, the Canadian government designated September 30th National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, responding to Truth and Reconciliation Call to Action number 80, which states that the federal government will work with Indigenous people to establish a statutory day to honour survivors, their families and communities, and ensure that public commemoration of the history and legacy of residential schools remains a vital component of the reconciliation process. As an educational institution deeply committed to the Truth and Reconciliation's 94 calls to action, Centennial is honouring this particular call to action by cancelling classes, pausing regular college operations, and designating it as a day of reflection, engagement and learning for all our students and employees. The decision to close the college wasn't taken lightly, and indeed was made in consultation with Indigenous community members, both internal and external to the college, while recognising our commitment to reconciliation and honouring the requests of survivors who shared their stories and wisdom as part of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. There's an opportunity here, a real opportunity to make tomorrow matter by taking the lessons to heart and taking a definitive step towards reconciliation. Please help us make it matter. Sean will now share how.
What this means for our community is that we'll be moving our Orange Shirt Day activities to today, featuring a variety of Indigenous voices from within and outside of the college community, and we ask that all students, staff, and faculty take time tomorrow to engage in reflection or engagement around the legacy and resilience of intergenerational survivors of residential and day schools. We encourage you today and tomorrow to wear orange to honor the legacy of Phyllis and other survivors within our community. What this will look like will be different for every person at Centennial. It could be reading a book about residential schools, such as When We Were Alone, or the graphic novel Sugar Falls by David A. Robertson. For others, it could be reviewing the executive summary of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, or attending virtual or in-person honoring ceremonies. It could be watching the story of survivors online through the website Legacy of Hope, or it could be spending time with your family speaking about residential schools and reflecting on the privilege of getting to spend time with little ones in your life today, without worrying that someone is coming to take them from you. Something not afforded to the parents and grandparents of residential school survivors. Whatever you choose to engage in, it is our hope and intention that it is a step further on your journey of learning about the impacts and legacies of this and other horrific colonial policies that have impacted Indigenous peoples across Turtle Island. While we recognize that the stories and legacy of residential school survivors may be reflected on more than just one day through the year, we are confident that everyone in our community will use this day to pause and reflect on what your responsibility is personally, and as someone in our college community, on being a treaty citizen with obligations to reconciliation and learning about the truth about residential schools and other impacts of colonization. Hi for your time, attention, and we hope to see you join us at some workshops later on. Miigwech.